Hello, everybody. Welcome to Do All the Things, a Hotfix show all about 100% speedruns and runs where you do all something in a game. I'd say, for instance, we have an all dungeons run Final Fantasy XIV of the Shadowbringers expansion, and then like right now we have Quest for Glory all unique game overs. It's the RPG episode, so yeah, excited about that personally. This one's like more of like a hyper RPG though. Quest for Glory. It's more it's like point and click and also like as RPG like elements to it. It's pretty cool. I've seen this before. Not this category. I know this category is gonna be pretty silly, so I think we should probably get into it. What's up, David? Hello.
Hello, I am David, and yeah, I will be showing Quest for Glory 1 all unique game over messages. Joining me on commentary, I have Lemming.
I too die in this game a lot.
Yeah, but it's not on purpose, is it?
No.
Right. Yeah, so this is an old school point and click adventure game with RPG elements. It's made by Sierra, and well, Sierra put a lot of different ways to game over in their game, each with different messages. So this is kind of closer to a casual play than a normal speedrun is, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, as far as character class goes, at least one death is locked behind having a sword. There's at least a couple that are locked behind having magic, and a couple that are locked behind locked doors. So I need pick locks and magic as a fighter. The rest of my points up to me, but the rest is going to go to magic because I need as many magic points as I can get on the first day. So a couple of caveats before we begin this run. This is on version 1.0, the original Heroes Quest. There are some deaths that were added to later versions, and I'm playing this in DOSBox, and that's also important because some deaths are bugged and unreachable, and ScumVM has fixed at least one of those. And thirdly, I'm going to let the death jingle play out in its entirety every single time.
It's a earworm. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ready to go?
I'm ready.
Whenever you are.
All right. Let's go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. I'll go ahead and speed up the game. I'm going to do a little... Whoops. That is not the way I meant to go. I'm going to go to the magic shop first and, well, actually buy a spell because I walked into town without any spells. Fetch is going to be useful for a couple of things. I'm going to use it to fetch this ring immediately, which I'm going to give to the healer standing right here so she doesn't do the kissing animation. She gives me enough money to buy the other spell that I'm going to need, which is the open spell. So we're going to start getting into our first death. We're going to save early and save often. That gate, it can close on me. Whoops.
Oh, no.
Ow, that kind of hurt.
You're
Maybe
fine.
I should move out of the way. Oh no.
No.
Now you known why the grass grows so well around the portcullis. You know, Conquests of Camelot has a similar death, but it's considerably more violent. Hold on a sec. I don't want to nap here. I want to fight this guard. Oh no.
No.
I love the scene missing of this one. He just kills you, but he never gets up.
There's a different message with these guards. The sooner you draw your weapon, then the guards have their weapons out and quickly disarm you. Yeah, there's... Most of Quest for Glory's deaths involve doing something rather silly and that you obviously shouldn't do. Saw a goblin there. You can't take on this giant with magic because, well, he'll out-magic you. In matters of...
That's a good jingle there.
Yeah. In matters of magic, I am your master. Seek not to slay me with sending so small. But you could also just try and fight him, and he'll knock you back once, and that hurts a lot. Took out 10 of my health, but I'm going to keep that because next time pick on someone your own size, because low health is going to make certain other deaths a lot easier to get. Like, this game is actually pretty generous by Sierra standards because they allow you to make a mistake and, like, it only takes some health. Oh, fight. Okay, let's just go ahead and drop our sword. Yeah, don't get in close combat without a weapon. It's going to be the last combat you ever see. But it's on the ground right there. you know what? Let's let him finish me off as well. It was a tough battle and you lost. Never fear. All you have to do is restore your game. And what do you mean, restore what game?
They knew no one was going to read the manual when they first booted this up.
There's one more death that I can get in combat, but I don't have the means to get it just yet. The means for that is actually right here, where the open spell will get me to the calm spell. So let's see, is there a monster here? Nope. So I will go ahead and drop my shield so I can cast spells in combat. The calm spell, if you cast it in combat, will result in your death because you're supposed to cast it before combat starts. If you calm an angry monster, they'll just calmly beat you to death. Okay, but we'll just juke right past this ogre. And I think someone mentioned something in chat before about bears punching you out. Wonder if the bear's paws were clean. There's the kobold's cave has quite a few ways to die in it. There's at least one that I know was added to version 1.2 about if you try to force the chest open, you get a message saying, hey, don't attack things that attack you back. This game was supposed to be able to switch between first-person and third-person mode for combat, and there are at least a couple of dummied-out deaths from switching between the two.
Yeah, I got this one. Forgot to have a title.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, no title here. That's right.
They remembered to play at least. No, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Ouch. Chest here. And it was trapped. So there's a reason that I have chosen to play version 1.0 of the game, and the main reason is because in version 1.0, the fetch spell will always get the key from the kobold every single time. If you're playing version 1.2, you need a fetch skill of 35 in order to actually succeed on that fetch cast.
Yeah, and grinding spells in this game is a real chore.
It really
Very time-consuming.
is. Oh yeah, I can just get in combat with the ogre and then run away from it. So you need the sword to actually hack that plant open, and that's going to actually get you the seed that's hidden within. But, well, the Dryad doesn't want you to get the seed that way. She has something against you attacking plants.
Oh no.
I'm the spitting image of a spirea plant.
Okay. Made you eat dirt, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. But instead, I am going to use the fetch spell. Wow, that succeeded. That's only a 1 in 4 success chance. And get the seed without harming the plant. Whoops, there's a pit in the graveyard. For some reason, that pit's not there in the remake. I'm not sure why. There is a 256 color remake that uses mouse rather than text parser in order to input stuff. I tend to run this version because it's a lot faster. Yeah, the whole series is a mere $10 on Steam. It is also on GOG. It comes packaged with DOSBox, and you know what? I was supposed to ask him about the green fur, not the scroll. I mean, I do need that scroll anyways.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the rare category where we actually need to detect some magic. As opposed to just being very meta aware of it.
Yeah. All right. So we've got a little fairy ring in the forest here, and I'm actually going to pick up mushrooms 3 times. I'm going to need to sell some to the healer, but don't eat these mushrooms. These mushrooms aren't good either.
I love the effort of changing that palette just for this one joke.
Yeah, it's great.
This song's going to haunt me tonight. All right. Yeah, don't try to hurt the stag either. You can't harm it, but you can make her mad.
The nightmare fuel image at the run.
That is a fascinating drawing of the hero as a deer.
Such a choice.
That's incredible.
Okay, but we are here to give the Dryad the seed so that she can give us the recipe for the Dispel Potion as well as a magic acorn, which will be needed for that potion. I don't think I remembered to buy flasks in town, so I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. I keep forgetting to do that. I suppose I could drink the healing potion, but I want my health to remain low for this category. Okay, flying water right here, and then detect magic allows us to know that that ladder is there, and so we can climb up it and fall down immediately. I did specify all unique game over messages because there's multiple places where you can fall and get this message. I'm not going to do all of them. Okay, but there's more here. There's a door here, so let's knock on it and ow.
Oh. That was a quick one.
Yeah, you'll survive that if you have health, which I do not. Having low health makes a lot of these go faster. Okay, but let's actually go inside and talk to the hermit and make him mad. Whoops. Whee!
Brutal 10-foot fall.
Mm-hmm. All right, so one of the reasons that I have rescued the Baron is because that triggers this archery range conversation where these two fine gentlemen are talking to one another. Most of these messages around here will have the same text here, but they'll have different titles, so I'm counting them as different messages because of the different title. Just because if you wait for this guy to go away, then you can annoy this guy, and you get the message that says, daggered to death. Try to avoid annoying that deadly duo next time. But also, Bruno just happens to be right down here.
Oh no.
There's no way to kill this guy, by the way, casually.
Nope, Bruno is invincible, and so is Elsa. But yeah, if you've left the town gate 2 times and he's not waiting at the archery range and it's midday, then Bruno's going to be right here and not going to like it if you try to fight him or cast spells at him.
He's such a jerk for this.
He really is, actually. Okay. I did the fighting death. This is the casting death. He saw you casting a spell, and he already had a dagger in his hand. So I've got a rather interesting death coming up because it is currently midday on day 1. There is actually a unique death in the game where, for some reason, like if you have a memory fragmentation error of some sort, that results in a death message. And I know of perhaps one reliable way to actually get it. Hold on, let me make several safety saves here. There's a little bug with the healer's door. I can try to pick it. It's not actually checking that I have a lock pick. Let me see. Oh, and the hero is going to be a little impatient about resting, but there's a little trick there. He will always be willing to rest if your stamina is below half. Let me check the timing here. Sunset's still approaching, so I'll just rest 3 times here. The timing for this is very specific, but what I'm trying to do, Picklocks is 34. Better not let that get any higher. I'm going to enter the graveyard at sunset, rest until it is night, and then leave. And that triggers the fragmentation bug.
They even play the death jingle.
A program bug? Oh no.
There's one thing I've forgotten to do, which is to give the healer these 3 mushrooms, because hold on, what time is it? Sunset still approaches. Okay. There we go. That's more like it. The town gates close at night, so I gotta be careful there. There's some decent-looking fellows here in the alleyway who want to rob me of my money, but Thieves are unionized in this universe, so all you have to do to not get mugged by them is to make the thief sign to them, and they'll tell you the password to the Thieves Guild. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get a drink. You know, drinking is never helpful in Sierra games. Well, I suppose there's a bit in Space Quest 1, but yeah, don't drink the dragon's breath. And what was the password? It was Schwartfish?
Shortfish.
Okay. Thank you.
One of the most annoying ones to spell.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I needed to sell some mushrooms so that I would have enough money for my union dues as well. Whoops.
Oh.
To pay my union dues as well as to buy a lockpick.
Did it hit you on purpose or did you discover an obscure bug?
I don't know. But I can't believe the Chief Thief's reflexes. There's a particularly well-known death, and good, my pick locks is only 35, so I should be able to get this one. You can try to pick your nose. If your lockpicks is less than 40, then you're going to accidentally game over that way.
You're making me a little bit nervous. I'm like, oh, he's getting too good at nose picking here. You might not be able to die.
Yeah. Also, many of these doors are barred, and if you try to pick them a little too much, you're going to make some noise. So I'm going to be breaking into the sheriff's house pretty shortly. I'm going to mention that house in particular because there's actually 2 deaths in this screen that I cannot obtain. Here, I'll go ahead and show one of them just to kind of give a picture for it, even though I'm not going to get a different message. If you repeatedly pick open the safe and then close it, you're supposed to get a death message for blatant power gaming. But this version is bugged so that you won't see that message. It was fixed in ScumVM and it was fixed in the VGA remake.
Any excuse to keep playing that great new fart death jingle.
Also, there's a death message in the script somewhere where if you get in Otto's way when you open the music box, he's supposed to get you, but he's always off screen and the death only triggers if you're close enough to him, so it's not possible to get it. There is one other house that we're going to try to rob here. Yeah, wait a little bit for that message to play out and then try to go up the stairs. Help! LOL, kitty! LOL is for little old lady.
As far as we know, this might be the first lolcat.
Also, don't attack the cat. Okay, you know what? That's enough in town. I'm going to go ahead and sleep on the streets. I could go to the inn, but I don't need money anymore. Sleeping on the streets does rob you of all your money, but whatever. Don't need it anymore. So there's a little bug at the castle where if you try to fall asleep in front of the guard right here, it passes time instantly until night, which is useful since I do not have a way to climb out of town. Turns out the graveyard's haunted.
Also, Cesar's named Ken, okay?
Also, in most places, when you try to sleep, it's not very safe. I've chosen to sleep in the graveyard because that death jingle is slightly shorter than the normal one. I'm going to split off my saves here now because I'm going to make several saves here. So I never actually got the gem from the giant that allows me to get past the skull, but it's possible for me to clip right through the fence. They're making use of a little thing called High-Speed Hero, which I've been turning off and on. It makes me move faster. Oh, and the house sits on me.
I thought that was a good strategy game. Why are you calling it bad? That was a great clip.
All right, we're gonna be entering cutscene central now because Baba Yaga's text is basically on an auto scroller, and you can't make it go faster. And there's like 5-6 different ways to die by her. What shall we have for supper today?
Hooray!
All right, so if you're unfamiliar with the game, the basic plot of the game is that, basically the Baron of the land tried to drive Baba Yaga out of the valley at some point. Lemming, how do you pronounce fricassee?
Fricassee.
Fricassee, thank you.
Yeah. And that's a real one. Like, she's gonna go through a bunch of other like ghoulish variations of food. But frog like fricassee, I'm pretty sure that's just like a buttery French stew. Like, that's real.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, she cursed the Baron, and so the Baron's lost his children. Brigands have taken over the valley, and she was just here minding her own business. Oh, right. She turned me into a frog, gonna ask me a few questions. I don't suppose you have a name? No, I don't. Stubborn, aren't you? Well, you won't be so tough after you've simmered in a little wine sauce. Bon appetit, theories! This ending graphic's great.
Yeah, look, it's animated and everything.
Froggy, no.
Froggy!
Okay, you know what? That didn't work. Why don't we say, yes, I do have a name?
You don't even have to type it. You just have to type, like, affirmative. Some kind of, like, yes, why, whatever, just to affirm.
Yeah, like, it's easy if you don't say anything for the timer to run out, and if you don't say anything, then it's going to assume no. Are you brave? No. When someone asks if you're brave, you say yes. Found the coward's way out, sauteed in wine sauce. Wait, yes, I'm brave. I say right there. I need to say something. If you're willing to do a small little teensy favor for me, I might reconsider having you for supper. Okay, just a small little favor. Root of a mandrake plant that grows in the graveyard. Will you be as sweet and fetch me some? No. Well, if you won't be as sweet, then you'll be my meat. Nothing says lovin' like frog legs in the oven. That's a lot of rhyming.
Of all the lazy.
I'm a lazy hero. Okay, fine. Yes. I'll do it. Anything but frog legs.
Fricassee.
What was it? Fricassee, thank you. Cooking's one of my hobbies. I should know this. But I'm not a professional.
Same here, but I don't even know it either. Never heard fricassee until now.
What do you cook? Was awkward. Oh, right, I'm cursed. I must bring back the mandrake before dawn or I will die. Well, you know
I do love
what?
that low effort rhyme to you, comma, shoe.
Well, you know what? I feel like that curse is tomorrow's problem. I'm just gonna go to sleep here.
She's bluffing.
Suddenly you hear voices. They all sound like Baba Yaga, and they all say, "Where's my mandrake root?" Oh.
The frog expression is so good.
Okay, whatever. I'll just go back in there and ask her to pretty please let me off the hook. It ought to work, right?
Yeah, what's our charisma stat?
Charisma?
Yeah. And communication or...
Communication isn't until Quest for Glory 2. So we don't have a charisma. Have I made a mistake? Once again, you're a frog, and once again, you can't move.
You find it very exasperating.
Mm-hmm. Yum, yum, froggy frap. Don't ask for this at Starbucks. Did you bring me my mandrake like you promised? You're going to get the same message either way, whether you say yes and not have the mandrake, or you say no. So, just say no. It's faster.
How do you make an amphibian omelet?
Good question. At least you could have said yes before you croaked. But I did keep a separate save before all of this so that I would not have to deal with the curse. And oh, look, there are a bunch of fairies here. So let's go ahead and dance for them real quick. And then I will go ahead and ask them for fairy dust because that is one of the ingredients in a dispel potion. But also, you need to be nice to these fairies because if you make them mad, then you're going to dance some more.
Oh, I wish that was
No.
the track were longer.
Yeah. Never danced so hard in your entire life, which is now over.
Womp womp.
Okay, let's load that. And then I'm going to go over here. Ooh, there's an antwerp here. Let's say hi. Ow. 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 That kind of hurts a little bit. Oh. Maybe I shouldn't have missed the annual visit with your local healer. Okay, but I did let him get me low on health again because there's another death that I've got over here. And this is actually one that you're supposed to be able to do anywhere. So my health is at 1. If you do certain things, your stamina will drain. And you're supposed to be able to get this from overworking yourself if your stamina goes to 0 and your health goes to 0. But it's actually bugged so that any skill with a difficulty of 40 or less will not kill you.
Oh, you beat the
Bonk.
Antwerp. Oh.
No, I think he beat me. Bonk. All right, that's pretty much every death we can get before endgame, and I do now have all the ingredients to the dispel potion, which is going to be fairy dust, green fur. You know what? I'll type all this out at the healer. I'll just try and say it there. Okay, fairy dust, green fur, flowers from Urana's piece, a magic acorn, flying water. Leave, come back. She's got the potion for me. In my practice run before I started this, I actually forgot to grab that potion. Another safety save here. Oh, there's another dummied out death here involving Fred the Troll that, again, you can find a call to the death script in here, but there's no way to activate the script that actually does it. So it's a bit of dead code and nothing fixes it. I'm just trying this again and again. You need strength 40 to do this 100% of the time. But just come in here grinding on the rock, you can just go ahead and get it open. And so we're going to go to the Brigand's Fortress. You know what? I need a little rest. The Brigands oblige you by making a pleasant rest permanent.
What are the hyphens between the Z's?
I don't know. All right, I'll go ahead and cast open on the gate. You know what? I shouldn't just barge in. I'll ring the bell. Ding, ding, ding. Well, maybe the brigands aren't such inhospitable creatures after all. Then again, maybe they are.
I love how Toro the Minotaur is completely unbothered by any of this.
Yeah. There are a lot of ways to die in the Brigand Fortress. So we're going to start with this room, which has like 6. There's a carpet trap right here.
Well,
Classic. If it looks like a trap and it feels like a trap, then maybe it is a trap. But here's one that I only found out about recently. You can actually slip on these rugs from above and get this terrible catastrophe pun.
Oh my god, that's really bad.
It is terrible.
It's bad and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Whoops, fell down here. You see a sign that reads, "Beware of porcupine." That's odd. You don't see it. You do, however, see many archers leaning over the chasm edge with arrows pointed towards you. You now have a funny feeling you know who the porcupine's gonna be. I love that one. Whoops. That bridge is fake.
This isn't even speedrunning. This is just the authentic casual experience trying to get through this fortress.
It really is. There's multiple places where you can get this, this job was dangerous death message. This is kind of the easiest one. The brigand ambush gives you the same death message, so just grab it here. But then this rope, has another Antwerp. How embarrassing to get this far and then fail to see the trip rope. How did they get that Antwerp up there? I think Antwerp was a... You know what? I'm not going to talk about that. Okay, let's just go on here. Oh, they followed me through the door. Better find a way to prevent this room has another half dozen deaths or so. And the VGA version adds even more. Oh, whoops. Going left doesn't work either. Still too many brigands to fight in here. You need to find some way to block one of the doors. Okay. Well, let's block this door and then block this door. Whoops. The Three Stooges have come in and they're getting me. And that is actually the Three Stooges. Sierra loved their shout-outs. Okay, all right, I'll just move this candle down to block their way. Another save here.
Sierra's flagrant disregard for copyrights.
Except they're not the Three Stooges. They're Dead Red Knuckle Kopfin or something like that.
I saw a text box going like, "Oh, why is Daye?" That's very good.
You're hopelessly surrounded. Should have taken quicker action against these knucklehoffs. Elevate your thoughts to a higher plane. All right. Hop now. Boom. Got him. Haha, yeah. Oops. I should have.
Oh no.
Molasses in January.
Should have left the room when you had a chance. Okay, let's go ahead and go in here and then scare this guy away. And then, you know what? I'm tired. Let me go ahead and... There's a different death message for sleeping in here. All right. How much health do I have? I can fall one more... Oh, I'll just let it go. Hey, we had Fall Guys, like, way in the 90s.
Apparently.
Well, this is the prequel. Fall Guy.
Sure. Okay, all right.
Singular.
Pull the chain, go over here, and then we'll open this door. Ow. What a miserable experience.
What is it with doors in this game?
Are there a few door deaths? That's really funny.
Time the joke fell flat.
Okay, let's just move out of the way of the door. All right. Here she is, the brigand leader, the one that we have been tasked with taking on in order to save this valley. We defeat her, we will get the title of Hero of Spielberg. And we are gonna... Ow. Elsa, my dear, there's a problem, I fear. To our dismay, that spell's here to stay, for alas, you did slay your hero today.
I like how that's also a game over for Elsa.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah, there's no way to actually beat her in a sword fight. The game will always just make her stab you.
All right. So instead, we throw the Dispel Potion on her to restore her to her true self, which is actually Elsa, the Baron's daughter. And you know what? Why don't I grab some of this treasure to go? Or maybe not. Thinking about all that treasure costs you time and more. Some folks just don't know when to leave. All right, well, let's leave. Actually, you know what? I don't feel done with that. I want to go back.
There's all that treasure.
Greedy, greedy, greedy. All right, well, you know what? There is one last thing that I never did manage to take care of, and that's that I think I have some unfinished business with Baba Yaga here. So, you know what? Let's go and visit her again, and she'll skip straight to her final cutscene if you come here with the mirror in the EGA version. Time's gonna be when this last death jingle plays. This is the last death that I have in this run. Oh wait, I have a magic mirror? Oh, I'm supposed to hold that up. Oh, oops. Change back into a froggy. Ooh, yummy. I'm glad you returned. Time.
GG.
So there you go. That's every single death that I am able to reach in version 1.0 of Heroes Quest in DOSBox.
GG.
Oh, are you not entertained?
That was very entertaining, honestly.
Now everyone can play the game and they can do a deathless run. They know what to avoid.
Yeah, just don't do any of the things I did.
Yeah. Or do, either way works. Maybe some of the things in this case, honestly.
Yeah. It's on my to-do list to route Quest for Glory 2, but Quest for Glory 2 is actually a lot more complicated death-wise, because the end game is different for all three classes, and there are some deaths that require you to be a hybrid, a thief with magic skills, so that's not easy to figure out. But anyways, that's going to be it for me. Anything for you, Lemming?
No, just shout outs to you. This is a very silly category, but it's something that you can really only do if you understand this game both in and out, casually and from a speedrun perspective. So it's a lot of technically impressive things happening under the hood, and well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you liked seeing all the failures in a Sierra game, Lemming is going to be on the GDQ stage this January playing Conquest of the Longbow, only this time it's not going to be all game overs, it will be low percent. Finish the game with the lowest score possible.
These games love to let you fail.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell for sure from the last run. Yeah, any other shout outs here?
That'll be it. Take it away.
All right, in that case, we'll be back after this, after the stroller break, while we set up for Fantasy XIV Shadowbreakers expansion, all dungeons. So, see y'all then. Welcome back, everybody, to Do All the Things, a Hotfix show all about Armstrong speedruns and completionist categories in general. Like this one right here, Fantasy XIV Shadowbreakers All Dungeons. My friend Lord Fluffy here. Before we go into that, I got a few announcements, so bear with me on this one for sure. First off, y'all know about AGDQ 2025? Y'all heard that of it before? Well, it's happening live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from January 5th to the 12th. You should visit gamesandquit.com and check out the AGQ 2025 important dates section to learn more about it. I'm excited to go there myself. I'll be there all week. But yeah. Speaking of cool events on the channel as well, check out Back to Black 2025, the upgrade to UBAF. That'll be live February 6th to the 9th here on the Games of Quick Twitch channel. Benefiting Race Forward. Get your action and support an incredible cause. Type !BTB in chat to see the event schedule, which I will do right now myself. If you want to find more about the All Black Speedrun community, type !BAF as well, which I'll also do myself. I got you, chat. Don't you worry. I saw some earlier too mention that there's the Miss the Quest for Glory one. Don't you worry, it'll be on the GDQ Twitch channel pretty soon, honestly. Be sure to check it out, youtube.com/gamesdonquick. You'll also see all the events and shows you may miss there as well. Hey, if you want to also keep up with GDQ and Hotfix as well, join the official GDQ Discord at the Hotfix role there. You can tab upcoming events, talk to staff, and more. Use !Discord and Twitch chat for info on that one. I think that's all I'm going to say right now in terms of announcements. I think we should get into the run right now. What's up, Lord Fluffy? Hello, hello.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, which has a free trial which includes all the Realm Reborn and the award-winning Stormblood and Heavensward expansions with no restrictions on playtime. Alrighty, we got the meme out of the way. Let's do this. I should put that tab to that. Okay, so hello. This is going to be Final Fantasy XIV All Dungeons Shadowbringers, specifically to completing every single dungeon that was released during the Shadowbringers expansion. The reason why categories are separated via expansion in Final Fantasy XIV is very simple. It would make every category more or less outdated every 4 months or so when a new patch is added. Not to mention, segregating it between expansions just helps keep things consolidated and makes things interesting in that regard. All right, so before we get into the run, there is a few things that we have to do. The first and foremost, the way that we do this run is by using the unrestricted party option. This allows us to enter older content at maximum level with all the gear we have at max level, all the items, all the abilities, all of the augments that we can use, such as food and potion. Secondly, we're going to be doing every single dungeon, as said, from this tab here, the Shadowbringers tab. Thirdly, we're going to be activating a few things before that. First and foremost, we're going to pop 2 instances of roast chicken. This food here gives us additional health and damage stats, such as direct hit and determination. We can go into those forward. And finally, I'll be doing this run solo, so I will not be having any help with that. So we'll get into the run here. The timing will start when the barrier within the first dungeon here, Holminster Switch, drops, and I will count down to that in just a moment. And you may notice that we are doing it on Pictomancer. Normally, all dungeon categories have been done pretty universally on Ninja, but for the most part, Ninja has been overtaken by Pictomancer, and this is because Pictomancer, well, there's a bit of a controversy about it right now, but Pictomancer is busted. So let's get this going. We'll start off the run here in just a moment. We're counting down in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So right out of the gate, Final Fantasy XIV dungeon design is, generally speaking, pretty linear. You're going to go from point A to point B, defeat 3 or so bosses along the way. When the final boss of the dungeon is done, that is when you are going to be done with the dungeon and can move on to the next one. To facilitate getting from point A to point B, Pictomancer has a couple tools that we can take use of. The first tool that we are going to make the most use out of is the all-class ability Sprint. All-class ability Sprint simply increases your movement speed by 30% whenever you use it, and that has a 60-second cooldown. There is a caveat there, however, that if you use Sprint while in combat, anytime this aggro list you see on the left here has enemies that are still inside of it, that that duration will be reduced by 50%, so you'll only get a 10-second duration instead. Alongside Sprint, we also have one of the best movement tools in the game in Smudge. Smudge is a gap closer ability that Pictomancer has that dashes it forward 15 yalms. You can think of a yalm as a meter or a feet, something along that line. And you get that every 20 seconds. It also gives you the additional ability, which grants you the same amount of speed boost as a sprint does, 30%, for 5 seconds. So unlike other jobs where you get 20 seconds maximum of sprint per 60-second period, Pictomancer can theoretically get 35 every 60 seconds, which is very powerful. Before we go into explaining more about Pictomancer, for this section here of the dungeon, I want to be making sure that I'm taking out Forgiven Goblins. Forgiven Goblins have a capability on them where they can inflict me with a slow, which makes me attack slower. And generally speaking, every single GCD that you lose for Final Fantasy XIV speedruns is going to be about 2.5 seconds at most that you will be losing outright in terms of... It'll be 2.5 seconds that you're losing in terms of your potential progression. So unfortunately, we did get hit with a slow. Couldn't quite take out the goblin that was hitting me at the time. So we're going to have to just eat that slow. You see I'm attacking very, very slowly here. Ideally, we can avoid that. Didn't quite have the resource management that we would come from that. All right. So here we go. That segment is done. We're going to head into the second boss here. And while we can do that, we can explain the main reason why Pictomancer's taken the speedrunning scene in Final Fantasy XIV by storm, and that is its burst damage. Ninja, the previous job we used to do this on had some of the highest burst damage in the game alongside ridiculous mobility. So it could take advantage of that to not only go super fast, but kill things super fast at the cost of being not so super great at killing things in between those burst phases. Whereas Pictomancer has undeniably the highest burst in the game. And because of the core of its job's design and how dungeon design works in Final Fantasy XIV, it gets to circumvent its main weakness in terms of its inherent design. So Pictomancer, its main ability to deal a lot of burst damage instantly is tied to motifs, specifically creature, weapon, and landscape motif. Whenever you use these motifs, you get access to additional abilities. These additional abilities range from extremely high 1400 potency burst damage that falls off in a cleave hit, or extremely high damage guaranteed critical direct hit that also has that same cleave fall off that still direct hit crits the entire time. And then also gives you this ability, Starry Muse, which is an actual paragraph of things that it does. Look at this. Look at how long that is.
Oh my goodness.
It does so much stuff. Yeah, so Starry Muse, to boil it down as much as I can, gives you access to the highest damaging ability that Pictomancer has, gives you a 5% damage buff for 20 seconds, gives you a field on the ground that also gives you haste, which means you attack faster. Whenever you use up all 5 stacks of that field on the ground, you also get another very powerful ability that gets to be instant cast in the process. And combining all the 3 of these things together, Pictomancer's burst is utterly ridiculous. There is no other job in the game that can come close to the amount of damage that Pictomancer can push out in a burst damage situation. Because of that, despite it having less mobility than Ninja in the long run, it just falls short in every capacity when it comes to the speed in which you can get through dungeons. And that's the first dungeon done, for the record. Once the final boss of a dungeon is done, you can move on to the next boss. You don't have to do anything else. Even if you had enemies tailing you, that's a teleport. We'll get to that later. If you had enemies tailing you, you don't have to actually sit there and deal with the enemies in question, because the game considers the dungeon done once the final boss is defeated, regardless of the state of the rest of the dungeon. Therefore, we take that into account and ignore it. Lovely. Right. So, this is a good time to talk about damage in Final Fantasy XIV, since we just got done talking about... a little bit early on that one. My bad. Since we just got done talking about damage, and that's the ways that you deal damage in Final Fantasy XIV. So, the biggest thing is that most abilities in Final Fantasy XIV are tied to what's known as the GCD, or the global cooldown. Basically, they are abilities that all share the same, at most, 2.5 second cooldown, in which the majority of all damage, actually pretty much all damage, is based around. Aside from that, we also have something known as off-global cooldowns, which, as the name implies, are abilities that have their own separate from the GCD cooldown that can range anywhere from, 30 seconds, 15 seconds to 7 minutes, depending on the cooldown. But you won't run into those 7-minute ones much, if at all. And definitely not in this run. So the general gist of dealing damage in Final Fantasy XIV is going to be, you want to cast a GCD, and then if you have anything on the off global cooldown that you need to cast, you cast those in between your global cooldowns. And the other principle of this is the ABCs of Final Fantasy XIV, otherwise known as always be casting. Any time that you are not casting is theoretically damage that you are losing. Any time that you lose 2.5 seconds, you've effectively lost 1 GCD. And every GCD you lose is up to 2.5 seconds of time lost, depending on the circumstance. So any time that you can continuously be casting, continuously be dealing damage, or continuously be healing, depending on the style of game, or the style that you're doing at the time, is time in which that you are making the most use of all of your abilities in 14 that you can. That was the wrong one to cast. There we go. Now, in terms of how damage is registered, there's 3 different things that augment your damage. First is just regular damage variance. You will never deal the same amount of damage with the same cast every single time. There's always going to be at least some level of random variance to the damage that you can cast, to the damage that you deal. So sometimes an ability that deals 73,000 damage will deal 73,500 sometimes, and then 72,750 sometimes. And there is just that inherent variance that you can't really avoid. There is one way to augment your damage, one random way to augment your damage known as a direct hit. A direct hit is a substat that you get in Final Fantasy XIV, which for every single within like certain tiers, it's complicated. Basically, the more of the stat that you have, the higher the chance to get that direct hit is. And direct hits are a flat 25% damage increase on that target. Then you also have critical hits, which is also another substat. Critical hits are very similar to direct hit in that the more of it you have, the higher your chance of actually getting the critical hit. But critical hits also have the added bonus of also having the stat affect how much that critical hit does inherently. Meaning that the longer an expansion goes on, the more valuable crit becomes versus every other stat. And that's just sort of how the status quo of how critical hit has been in 14 for the longest time. Not much you can do to change that. But the critical hit variance can range from 29% with like a low amount of stat to 33% extra damage at like an overwhelmingly large amount of it. And the great thing about it is this can stack. So you can get what is known as a critical direct hit, where you get both the damage buff of a direct hit and a critical direct hit. And that can massively increase the damage of a single ability, upwards of 200% of the damage, even more in some ridiculous circumstances. Also, hello everyone. This is our friend Frog, Inkfon. I think it's Inkfon. I don't really remember, but he is friend Frog. We're just fighting him right now because he wants to test our abilities, you know? That's all it is. Say hi to friend Frog, everyone.
Hi, friend Frog.
All right, so most bosses, we won't have to really worry about their mechanics and the attacks that they're doing. Friend Frog here, we will have to worry about one specific attack. 2 attacks, actually. It'll be Inkwire and Frog Choir. We want to make sure that we are not looking at him for Inkwire, and then when he does Frog Choir, we just have to get behind him. Otherwise, he will polymorph us into a little creature, which is going to prevent us from attacking and slow down our ability to finish the dungeon. And that's the second dungeon down. That was the Don Meg. Now we're heading into the third dungeon, the Katana Ravel, which I always sort into Katana Rava. And I don't know why, but it sounds better to me that way. Also, this is one of my favorite dungeon themes in the entire game. I love the backtrack here. All right. So, generally speaking, with the explanations of damage augments that I have said, the other ways that you can augment your damage is via the use of food. As I mentioned, food will give you additional health, as well as give you more of your substats. These substats will subtly, but sometimes be enough to give you, not always, but they will sometimes be enough for you to save a GCD. In some circumstances, sometimes they'll save you 2. But in most situations for dungeons, they don't give you the biggest benefit outside of bosses, so you won't necessarily see that come into play with rare circumstances. However, the other way to augment your damage is via the use of these gem droughts here, or what the community calls these, which is potions. These just give you a flat amount increase to your main stat being the stat which all your damage calculations are inherently tied to. So popping a potion, as I am going to do right here, for example, just flat increases the damage that we deal on the lowest level, which is very nice. And you'll see me use these on bosses in certain locations, just to make sure that I deal as much damage as I can, because certain bosses will have more health than others depending on their mechanics. So sometimes I'll use it on one boss and then not use it for another, and it's all completely arbitrary and random which one I do it on, which is based on the numbers that Square Enix gave me. So Also, if I remember, because I forget a lot. And that's not even like a speedrun commentary thing. I forget to potion in normal gameplay all the time. So that's just the thing that I have to train my brain to do. Alrighty. Alright, so that leads us into talking about GCDs. Sorry, we talked about GCDs. So that leads us into talking about Pictomancer, and very specifically, accidental turnaround there. Thank you, auto-face targeting. So Pictomancer, if you're unaware, these motifs that you need to cast in order to gain access to the very strong Creature Muse, Steel Muse, and Starry Muse, these are in combat supposed to be abilities that give you a 4-second cast time where you cannot deal any damage in order to get access to those other abilities. And that's meant to be the thing that's supposed to, I say, cancel out and make Pictomancer more balanced in terms of its overall DPS potential. However, because of the staggered nature of Final Fantasy XIV dungeon design, we end up in situations of downtime where we're not attacking anything way more frequently than we would otherwise. Because of that, these motifs have an aspect to them that if we cast these abilities while outside of combat, the casts are instant. Meaning that Pictomancer can circumvent in these dungeon designs its main drawback as a class, meaning that it can get access to these extremely powerful abilities. Whereas in a normal, say, 10-minute fight situation, it would have to do those long casts at any time. You can plan around these downtime periods to get these casts off and prepare them for the next time that you need them. And because of that, it just, as I said, it circumvents what is meant to be the big drawback and weakness of Pictomancer's design, and just makes it far more powerful than I think the developers intended for it to be. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why hasn't it been nerfed then if it's this powerful? Good question. The answer there is the development team decided that buffing the other jobs in relation to Pictomancer would be a smarter move, which in most situations I would have said was the correct move. However, and this is specifically if you know your stuff about Final Fantasy XIV, has not turned out to be the correct move. We'll get into that later. Small little speed tech here. If you step onto this platform, aggro these enemies, and then walk off the platform, the monkeys that are supposed to be shooting AoEs at you will recognize, oh, hey, there's no enemies in the area we're supposed to be shooting our AoEs at. Hey, we're gonna hop down as if all of our allies are dead, which lets you spawn those monkeys in earlier and causes you to be able to finish this section faster. And you can do that in normal gameplay, for the record. If you're just doing this dungeon like in a normal 4-man party, you can do that at home too. So do it. Speed up your dungeon runs. It's very fun. Alrighty. So final boss here, there's no mechanics I realistically have to worry about. You might be thinking, oh, well, aren't you going to be worried of dying? Not really. At this point, the gear scaling that we have being 20 levels expected above what we're supposed to be here, the bosses do not have any real threat, with a couple of exceptions of dealing damage that would be a threat to our lives. So we don't really have to worry about doing any mechanics that just deal damage, because they don't put us in mortal danger. That being said, third dungeon down. Next up is going to be Malika's Well. Right out of the gate, we're going to be trying to do a teleport as I prepare a position. This is something we can do with all movement techniques. There we go. Nicely done. So what I just did there is something known as a teleport. Basically, the way that movement techniques are coded in Final Fantasy XIV, they always try to put you at the end zone of the dash until the full animation of the dash is finished. So if you time a dash at the right time, you can actually cause the game to warp you forward, because the obstruction that was preventing you from moving forward, in this case, the loading barrier to continue forward in the level, will disappear right at the end of the dash, and the game will immediately say, oh, hey, we can put them at the end of the dash target now. So let's just do that instantly. Let's warp them there. And that causes us to do that little teleport there. Oh, he ended up living. That was not supposed to happen. Well done, well, Armadillo. Oh, well, well. Well done, done. One little thing with these loading zones here, whenever you walk through a loading zone, if you have a buff like Sprint active, you typically don't want to use the Sprint before that buff, because while you go through the loading zone, the buff will continue ticking and you will effectively lose the duration of it, should you choose to do that. So generally, you're going to only really see me use Sprint in situations where I either won't be able to get the max duration and it's fine to walk it through the loading zone, or after a loading zone where I can get more of the total duration. Probably using your Sprint at the right time to maximize its usage is one of the core aspects to doing this dungeon fast. Alright, my notes got closed at some point, so I don't have my commentary notes here, and I was going to go into something at this point, and I've forgotten what it was. So, Shasta, if you have any questions for me, that might lead me into something I can talk about.
Maybe, yeah. Someone asked in chat, like, how RNG is in this run just typically? So maybe we can go into that a little bit.
Yeah, RNG is going to play a pretty decent factor. As I said, every single GCD that you will have to cast is an extra 2.5 seconds that you are losing. So because of how heavy the RNG can be with critical direct hits, as I said, the variance of damage that they can deal can be upwards of 200% in the most extreme circumstances. And because of the variance in the total potency of attacks, for example, Starry Muse, or Star Prism, which is the attack that Starry Muse gives us, has a potency of 1400. One little thing here. Whoop. Another little aspect about dashes is that if you dash off a cliff, the game will say, "Oh, well, we need to put them on ground," and it'll just down warp you to the closest location. And that's a bit of holdover from 1.0 jank when the game didn't have a jump button. This game didn't have a jump button at one point. I'm going to repeat that because it's a little bit silly to think about. But anyway, yeah, RNG is going to play a pretty big factor. So for example here, I'm going to cast Star Prism right out of the gate. It only dealt a direct hit, which means that if I had gotten a critical direct hit, I theoretically could have gotten upwards of 80k more damage. In the most extreme cases, I could have gotten like 100k more damage. That very easily, especially because he lived right at the end there with 0.1%, could have been the difference between me and a GCD. And RNG will play a big factor as a result of that. Every single critical direct hit that you get, or even just direct hit, basically any time the game is augmenting your damage to be stronger than a basic hit, you're theoretically going to save at least one GCD from that. So in the best case scenarios, you can gain 15-20 seconds in a dungeon from everything direct hit critting. And in the inverse, you could lose 15-20 seconds from nothing direct hit critting. Generally speaking, the RNG average across the board will make it so that you don't run into those major extremes. I've only ever really run into like one situation in the past little bit where I've gained like a massive 20-second gold on a stage just because the bosses all immediately died to burst damage. But there will be definitely some level of RNG where the variance that is inherent to Final Fantasy XIV damage will save or lose you time in random situations. So that is one aspect that is currently in the higher tier dungeon runs, stuff like Stormblood to an extent, Shadowbringers, and All Dungeons Endwalker. All right, so here we are in the final boss. This is Storage. We don't go into this with a whole lot of resources, but we do want to deal as much damage as we possibly can before we get access to our major burst. You'll see that I'm holding on to a ability here that I very clearly can use called Mog of the Ages. Mog of the Ages, I only get access to when I use 2 creature motifs, so I want to try and save that to use very specifically under burst. Okay, that didn't work out as I wanted to. Wanted higher damage variance, didn't work out. That's okay. Yeah, right. And that's the next dungeon. Next up is going to be Mount Golg. So right at the start of Mount Golg is going to be a good time to explain big pulls. So generally speaking in Final Fantasy XIV, unless your ability is designed as a cleave ability where it deals a high amount of damage to one target and then a lower amount of damage to the next targets, your AoE is just going to more or less like infinitely scale to be better than your single target. So like most jobs will have an AoE combo and then a single target combo. In the case of Pictomancer, it has fire in red combo and then fire 2 in red combo. Make sure I gotta use smudge there. So Pictomancer starts being more worth for Pictomancer to use fire 2 in red at 4 targets. And generally speaking, every single job will have that sort of situation where, oh, okay, so this job is now just like really good in this particular situation. I should not have popped Star Muse here, but I guess everything is going to die instantly, so that's fine. Yep, that's fine. I'll just figure something out for the boss here. What was I saying? What was I saying? I forgot.
I think something about Starry Moves, if I recall.
Ah, yeah, right, big pulls. So right there.
There we go.
This dungeon allows you to pull everything from the very start of the dungeon to the first wall just before the boss. And because of that, the AoE that Pictomancer has starts getting incredible value. Generally speaking, this applies to just normal gameplay, but the more targets that you can attack at the same time, the more damage you are dealing. The more damage you are dealing, the quicker things die. The quicker things die, the quicker you can move on. And that is the quicker you move on, the quicker you can get to the next enemies, and that is a nice little circle that loops into itself and is generally the core of dungeon speedrunning, as well as just, you know, dungeon runs in general and optimal damage dealing. But in this particular case, because the game does not stop me at all from reaching the next wall, I just pull everything and delete it all instantly, which saves so much more time than if I was in a situation where I could not big pull everything, and like I was at risk of dying from doing that. Thankfully, not the case. Can just pull everything, delete it quickly, and move on to the next. And that's an aspect of Final Fantasy XIV's dungeon design. While it was a little bit more varied in the earlier expansions, by the end of Heavensward, the dungeon design in 14 had more or less solidified into a specific pattern. That pattern being, you start at the dungeon, you take out a wave of enemies, a wall goes down that you can now pass through. You pass through the wall, you take out another set of enemies, a wall goes down, you can reach the boss. You take out the boss, you can move on, a wall goes down. Effectively, the arbitrary walls that are in every dungeon that prevent you from progressing, with very rare exceptions, will all go down when every enemy in the leg of the dungeon that you're in is taken down. Side note, while this boss's mechanics are not something I have to pay attention to, it is very funny to talk about this one. So the way that this boss's mechanics works is that the faces on the square will correlate to the squares on the arena, and you want to avoid the glowing lit up faces in the squares properly. Won't have to tear about it because I have good damage here, but that's a fun boss and I like him. Also, say the line, Vopri. Thank you, Vopri. I appreciate it. I love that voice line. It's delivered so well. Thank you, Vopri.
That's very good.
All right, so just like the first part of the dungeon, there's going to be another section here where I can pull everything. So I'm going to try and take advantage of a somewhat of a teleport situation in a similar vein to the teleport, in the sense that, like, if the obstruction stopping you disappears, you just teleport to where you're supposed to go. If you do a dash ability on the corner of a pathway, you'll ride along that pathway until the game says, oh, the obstruction is no longer in front of them. We can now warp them to where they're supposed to be, which can doesn't quite get you the same distance as a teleport, for example, but it does have the added bonus of being able to cut a corner as tightly as possible. All right. So after I finish up this boss, I'm going to be going into... I should mention, the boss after this one is a massive spoiler dungeon. So if you were playing Final Fantasy XIV and you have not yet reached this point in Shadowbringers, I'd highly recommend tuning out for at least that dungeon bare minimum, because it is a massive spoiler dungeon where the impact of it, seeing it before you get there for the first time, can greatly diminish the experience. So just want to point that one out as I delete this boss here from existence. And there we go. Alright, so now we're going to have the next dungeon, which is Amarat. This is the big spoiler dungeon. Look away if you have not reached here. Trust me, you don't want to see this until you get here naturally. But anyway, take advantage of the teleport right out of the gate. So this first part here is actually going to be one of these unique conditions for progressing forward. So the first set of enemies that spawn here, the second set will not spawn until one of them is dead. So we instantly want to target the Terminus Pursuer here to take it out. And now we can move towards the second set of enemies that spawn and take them out with the cleave damage that Pictomancer brings to the table. Have a couple of them that didn't quite die when they were supposed to, so we'll just take those out real quick. There we go. Don't mind the fact that a building landed on me and I was walking on nothing for a second. I'm completely fine. Don't worry about it. It's nothing to be concerned about. So, this is a good time to fully explain why Pictomancer is so busted in detail. So, each of the motifs, as I said, lead to a specific move. The creature motif leads to the creature muse. There are 4 different muses, and whenever you use them, and whenever you use 2 of these motifs, you get access to an additional ability, either Maga the Ages or Retribution of the Medine, based on the amount of creature muses that you have used. Each of the creature muses deals roughly 1,300 potency and damage. I think it's actually 1,200. I need to double check that. But the point being here is 1,200 potency for a single ability is a ridiculous amount. One that has a 40-second cooldown and can hold 3 charges of it is kind of ridiculous, especially when you consider using 2 of them gets you an ability that is either 1,300 or 1,400 potency. For reference, the average potency of like a basic attack in this game at this point is somewhere in the 300 range. So that is these are very, very powerful abilities that Pictomancer gets frequent access to. That again is supposed to be circumvented by the downside of having to spend time not dealing any damage casting to get them, but with dungeon design is easily circumvented. The second ability is Weapon Motif, which gives you access to Striking Muse. Striking Muse can only be used in combat, but when you use it, it gives you 3 stacks of Hammer Stamp, or Hammer Time, rather, which lets you use Hammer Stamp combo. And the Hammer Stamp combo is a 3-stage combo in which you will deal a guaranteed critical direct hit of roughly 800 potency, which when you add in the guaranteed direct hit, 560 potency, which when you add in the direct hit, the guaranteed direct hit aspect of it, can range from 850 some odd potency to 1,000 potency, depending on damage buffs and all that stuff. We'll make a quick detour for this boss here, the Terminus Bellwether. This boss here, we actually don't want to use our big burst ability right out of the gate because the boss currently has the Immortal status. The Immortal status, pretty simple. The bosses cannot die when they have the Immortal status. They will be hard stuck at 1 HP. So it's not worth using any of our giant burst abilities on that boss. We just have to get it to 50% to start the ad phase. Once the ad phase starts, we can then use our big burst abilities on that instead. And once all the enemies from this ad phase are taken out, the boss will come back and we can take it out then. Yeah, you can have 2 charges of the Striking Muse at any time, and that cooldown keeps rolling as long as you have 1 charge. Very nicely done. That went by way faster than it normally does. Good variance. I like that. Very nice.
Love to see it.
All right. beautiful viewscape here, by the way. Both beautiful and tragic
my
if you know the
goodness.
context. This is what I mean, by the way, when I said, like, if you do not get here naturally, you don't understand the impact of what you're looking at, because it is, well, very good. Shadowbringers is probably the best written Final Fantasy, I want to say since Final Fantasy VI. That is a claim I am
saying
making.
something for sure.
That is a claim that I am making and will stand by. Anyway, the big thing about the Hammer Muse is the fact that you get this critical guaranteed directed damage that has a cleave aspect to it from a distance. Taking advantage of that, Pictomancer can absolutely shred through anything in its way. And it can do so from a distance while continuing to move, because it is also instant cast. And that is one thing that Pictomancer has in spades, which is instant cast abilities. So typically, Pictomancer falls under what is known as the Magic Caster DPS category. And typically those jobs have to stand still and use abilities that have cast times that if you move while the cast is happening, it cancels. But because Pictomancer has so many instant cast abilities, it's very easy for Pictomancer to just say, actually, I don't have cast times. I don't need to worry about not moving. And the few times when you do have to sit there and cast, you're usually already in position where you don't have to move anyway, because you've spent all your instant casts moving into that position anyway. But yeah, because of how many instant cast Pictomancer has, it's able to take proper advantage of the mobility tools that it does have for dungeon runs, which is very good. It also makes optimizing 0.1 again. Come on, dude. I hate you. Why do you do this? Die.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. All right. So next up is going to be big old jammers. Get your best jam emotes in the chat, everybody, because we are going to the twinning.
There's that jam.
I love a long fall. Yeah, so when this dungeon first dropped with the release of Shadowbringers, there were a lot of memes that came out of this dungeon because of how adored the soundtrack for this dungeon was. Including two videos that are both titled The Twinning.mp4 or mp3. I think it's mp4. But those videos got so popular and so memified in the community that when the official Final Fantasy XIV band, the Primals, made their own rendition of this song, The Long Fall, they also choreographed a whole song based on those meme videos, a whole dance based off those meme videos to go along with it. And it's great.
That rules.
I recommend y'all look up A Long Fall performed by the Primals at the Final Fantasy XIV Online Fan Fest of, I believe it was 2021. But it's a very... if you want to see what the dance looks like in its entirety, it's very funny, very good, and I love the Final Fantasy XIV dev teams. Shout out to Masayoshi Soken, the composer for this game, the main composer for this game, who's done the majority of the tracks that you hear, and also is a cancer survivor. Love that guy. All right, unfortunately, we're going to have to not listen to the jam for just a second here because it does get canceled out when we enter the boss, unfortunately. But we will take out our good friend in just a second and get back to the good music. So yeah, the final muse is Landscape motif that gives you access to Scenic Muse, which is Starry Muse. And that gives you access to the actual paragraph of ability mentioned before. I have Rainbow Drip for 20 seconds. Okay, I can take advantage of that. Make sure you don't use your dash ability as you land here. If you time it perfectly, your dash cooldown will get eaten and you won't get the dash at all, and it sucks. I've had that happen multiple times before I realized what was happening, and a little embarrassed it took me as long as it did to notice. But anyway, those three motifs are the core of the majority of the damage that Pictomancer can deal. But even considering that, Pictomancer still deals a high amount of damage regardless. Pretty much the only thing that in Pictomancer's kit that doesn't deal a very high amount of damage, like just inherently is its basic fire and red combo. But even that can deal more damage because of a resource that it has called Pallet. Whenever you have 50 out of 100 for the pallet gauge, you can use an ability called Subtractive Pallet, which augments the basic fire and red combo to, I think it's the Blizzard and Cyan combo. And the Blizzard and Cyan combo is just a stronger version of the fire and red combo, which can, I think, also has potencies upwards of like 600. Yeah, 800 for the strongest hit. It is, sorry, for the weakest hit, 800. So Pictomancer has a lot of really strong abilities. And one of the things that Starry Muse does is give you a free cast of Subtractive Pallet. So, hey, I heard you like damage, so I put some damage on your damage so you can deal damage while you deal damage. We're bringing back that meme from like 10 years ago at this point. But that's basically what it is. Yeah, combining all these things together alongside Smudge, which is genuinely one of the best movement tools in the game, and its ability to deal all of this burst damage at a distance, Pictomancer's taken the speedrunning scene by storm. A very, very large number of the former IL world records that were held by Ninja were overtaken by Pictomancer immediately. A significant number of the dungeon world records were taken over by Pictomancer immediately. There's very few instances, and they're mostly related to like the earlier content where damage doesn't really matter and mobility is the name of the game, where Pictomancer hasn't at least had some sort of massive dominance in. All right, so we're coming up on the final part of the dungeon here. And the final boss of this dungeon, I will warn you, it does have my favorite song in all of Final Fantasy XIV. I will warn you, I am incapable of not singing at least a little bit of the lyrics every time I hear it, so I'm not a bad singer. However, I don't know how my microphone sounds coming through the GDQ, so I'll only do it a little bit. Sometimes my microphone coming through on showcases like this can come off bad. Seeking the peace of reason, sheep in a peaceless season, reason to keep believing, waking the beast who's sleeping. This is the Tycoon. If you know the lore to this dungeon, and you also know the boss that this dungeon boss is based off of, and you also know that I started playing this game in Later Realm Reborn, and Heaven's Sword is my favorite expansion, you might understand why this is my favorite dungeon boss of all time, alongside it having my favorite track of all time. Unfortunately, because we're in Dawn Trail now, I can't sing the entire song anymore, which is sad. Caught in a trance, ever mocking time inside a dream, no sign of a dance you see. Halfway through. Wow. Okay. So next up is going to be Academia Anidir. Andir? I call it Academia Andir. Apparently it's not Andir, it's Anidir or something like that. But this will be the dungeon that once we are finished with it, we will take the break after. So do a small teleport there and progress forward. And that was reminding Shasta. That was all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
How are you, Shasta?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm enjoying this run so far.
All right. So, I always had, whenever I did these runs for showcases prior, I always had a blurb that I would do for explaining Ninja and why Ninja was so powerful and why Ninja had, why did I do Sorry Muse there? That's not good, Fluffy. Just hitting buttons. I'm in the groove. I'm not thinking. I'm just seeing. The monkey brain activated. I saw the glowy button and I had to press it. You know, you gotta press the glowy button. You know.
Understandable, as you do, honestly.
All right.
Well, there before.
Yeah, I had this blurb that I would read off at the start of every showcase of why Ninja was so powerful and why it is still basically the dungeon, the job of choice for some of the lower expansion dungeons. And I'll read that off after this, but I have to explain this boss here. So I absolutely want to kill this boss before the second version, the second shark spawns. So the first shark here has a set timer that if we take out the boss before that timer ends, the second boss will appear instantly. But if we didn't take it out before that second timer ends, the first boss would disappear into the water, leaving us to have to take out the second one. And if we ever took one of them out while the other was in the water, we would have to wait for the other one to come out of the water. Otherwise, we have to wait for them to come out of the water because we wouldn't be able to attack them because they were in a invulnerable state. And that is something that you try to generally avoid with this game. Just gonna make sure I have both of these sets aggroed. For some reason, of this wave of enemies that spawn, occasionally one set of them will just not aggro to me, and I don't know why that happens, but I've been purposely moving to avoid that from happening in the future because it is not fun when it does happen. Okay. Right. So Ninja still has power in terms of the lower dungeons, and that is because Ninja is by far and away the most mobile job in Final Fantasy XIV. It has multiple dash abilities, ways to reset the cooldowns or store charges of those dash abilities, and a passive run speed buff, which makes it move ever so slightly faster than the other jobs in Final Fantasy XIV. The time save of which builds up over time, especially in the long length of some dungeons. Ninja also happens to have some of the highest burst damage in the game, which assists with the more staggered combat of Final Fantasy XIV's dungeon design. When you put those things together, whenever you do need a bit of burst, Ninja is more than enough to handle the amount of burst you need for those lower level dungeons, and it has far and away the most mobility possible, especially in the circumstance where you can take advantage of that mobility, which dungeons are the perfect place for Ninja to take advantage of it. So, prior to Pictomancer, those facts together basically meant that Ninja had more or less a complete stranglehold, with some exceptions on dungeon IL records and just the all dungeon categories in general, alongside a variety of other instances as well, just because of the inherent strength that its mobility and its high at the time, definitely still very high burst damage can deal. So, with how much of a stranglehold Ninja had, you can imagine how broken Pictomancer's damage and its other tools had to have been to make the stranglehold that Ninja had be overtaken by it. I recently, in practice, just to see the comparison, did a run on Ninja for all Dungeon Shadowbringers, and it was 4 minutes slower, which that is a lot of time to be making up for the amount of mobility that Ninja has. Alrighty, so we are coming up on the final boss of Academia Anidir here. If you are a fan of Final Fantasy VIII, you might recognize the final boss. Because this is a Final Fantasy game, it very often does draw inspiration from other Final Fantasy games. And the final boss of this dungeon is Quetzalcoatl, which I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. If it's not, someone can correct me. But
I think it's right, yeah.
It is she. It is she from Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy VIII fans rejoice. Alright. So this boss is one mechanic that we may or may not take advantage of depending on our damage numbers here. Occasionally, it will cast a lightning ability that will spawn orbs on the ground. These orbs on the ground will actually increase our damage dealt by 1% whenever we pick them up. They will spawn with this, but I'm pretty sure I won't have to care about it. Just a couple more of these should take it out. Yeah, one more. Ideally, we would pick those up just to guarantee that we deal a bit more damage, but pretty decent damage numbers there, so we can move forward. And from that, we are done with that dungeon, so we can do our pause here and take a break for the second half.
Yep, sounds good to me. In that case, we'll be back very soon with the rest of the run, everybody. So stick around for that. Welcome back from the break, everybody. And honestly, I've been enjoying this a lot. Let's get back into it, Fluffy. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So before we do that, I just want to show off. If you may have noticed, I have a costume here that is based off of Realm from Final Fantasy VI, the original Pictomancer, my favorite Final Fantasy game. So that being said, we're going to give it a 3, 2, 1 and go into the next dungeon, which is going to be the Grand Cosmos. So 3, 2, 1, go. And off we go. All right. So that break was actually nice because I got to stretch my hands for a little bit there. I've been having hand troubles the last little bit because, fun fact, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 4 different showcases that I've had to be practicing for. And I've been doing a lot of gaming for that. I was foregoing my stretches, which has caused hand issues that I used to have in the past to rear their head. So this is a public PSA from Lord Fluffy. Take care of your hands, everybody. Take breaks, stretch your hands. They are healthy for you. And don't rely on painkillers. That doesn't work. Trust me. You want to take care of your hands. That being said,
please take care of your hands. It's very important.
Please take care of your hands. I almost had to have...
I'm stretching them right now. As you said, I'm stretching right now.
I had to almost have surgery on these hands because of how poorly I took care of them at one point, and that was the last time I ever let it get that bad. Fun fact, the last run I did before I was going to get the news whether or not I needed surgery was my Titanfall 2 any percent run at one of the Califons before I think it was Califon Stand Strong.
I think so, yeah.
Was the run I did for that, and that's just a funny little thing because of the history Shasta has with the old Califon. So that's a fun thing.
Oh, yeah.
Fun thing I like to say there.
Good old Califon.
All right. So there's a funny little thing about this boss particularly. I mentioned that you get a half duration sprint if you use sprint while you are in combat. The thing about this boss, and you'll see it when we take it out here in just a moment, whenever you kill this boss, the boss does not leave the aggro list for a significant period of time. So you can't actually get the full duration of sprint, nor can you get the instant cast refresh of your motifs here. So you actually run into a situation where at the end of that boss, because of how short the time is until you get aggroed by the next set of mobs, you will basically go into the next pull of enemies pretty much completely unprepared, and you'll have to make some sort of sacrifice in terms of what you want to give up to... Ooh, there we go. That's a nice corner cut. Very, very good there. We love Final Fantasy XIV holdover from 1.0 jank here in this household. But yeah, there's a few cases like that where bosses you defeat won't actually leave the aggro list for a brief period of time, even though the boss is considered defeated and you can move on in the dungeon, which causes, sprints to be half duration, among other things. All right, this is Lenon's Seed. This boss does not have anything notable about it. The only notable thing is that because of typically how long it's been in the dungeon when we get here since the first boss, we ideally want to have this boss dead while we have an instant cast of our Rainbow Drip ability ready to go. So Rainbow Drip normally is an ability that has a 6-second recast but deals 1,000 potency. So there's normally some niche circumstances, as well as like it being the first ability you would use at the start of normal content pulls. We ideally would want to have an instant cast Rainbow Drip there available. However, I made the decision not to use my Starry Muse there because I could instead have a Retribution of Adine ready to go. Because we want this Draco statue to be dead by the time we reach the next part of the dungeon. And the simple reason for that is these enemies over here, the Porxies, Paraporxies, these have much less health than the Draco and will go down much quicker comparatively. So we don't want to run into a situation where we're blowing too much into the Draco after the Porksies are all dead. So just a little bit of a management situation there for cooldowns in that regard. Did see someone in chat clutching Red Mage to chest. Don't care how awesome Picto is. Trust me, in normal gameplay, I understand. I've been a Red Mage main like since Stormblood. Trust me, Red Mage is like the most fun job in this game to me. It's just Pictomancer is just busted. You
gotta go fast.
It's just busted, dude. There's no way around it. It's just busted. All right. Little thing here, you want to take out Sir Hamoth first. Sir Hamoth is a healer. If you let Sir Hamoth live, there's a potential that Sir Hamoth will heal these mobs, causing you to do more GCDs. And as usual, that goes back into every GCD you have to cast as an extra 2.5 seconds that you are losing. Up to 2.5 seconds. All right, now we're going to go into the final boss. The final boss has one mechanic that we have to pay attention to. If we see it, there's a chance that we won't see it depending on circumstances, but the boss will potentially cast an ability known as Mortal Flame. That will put a debuff on us that if the duration of that debuff expires, we instantly die. Regardless of what our current health pool is, it will instantly kill us. So we want to make 100% certain that we are... here it is, here's Mortal Flame. So we want to make 100% certain that we pass that Mortal Flame off to one of the pieces of furniture around. It could be any of the furniture that you see here, the drapery, the piano, the stool. As long as you are passing it off to something, it will not instantly kill you. Sometimes, if your damage numbers are the right amount, you will actually skip the HP threshold for the boss to cast Mortal Flame. Doesn't always happen, but in this particular case, it did not happen, so we have to do that mechanic. Thankfully, it's not that hard to deal with. You just got to make sure you're paying attention. All right. That being said, moving on from that, next up is going to be the dungeon Anamnesis Ander, and unfortunately, much to my chagrin, the only thing I can do to speed up the first part of this dungeon is kill the enemies as quickly as I possibly can, because the first part of this dungeon is an auto-scroller. So I have to stay right around here for the first part of this. Walk forward far enough. There's an area trigger here I have to be in. There we go. Spawn the enemies. So when we kill, for each enemy we kill here, it will spawn in another set. We ideally, right there, we ideally want to be in a situation where we spawn in all the enemies at the same time so that we can attack them all at the same time. And unlike with other parts where sometimes you want to save cooldowns for the next part of the dungeon, you don't want to save cooldowns here because they'll all be back in time. So while we're waiting... There's nothing I can do. This is entirely an auto-scroller, so I just have to sit here and emote and wait for those AoEs to appear, which indicates that the enemies are about to spawn. So just do whatever your favorite dance emote is, and you are good to go, basically. There's a lot of dance emotes in this game, too. There's a lot. Final thing here, there is one last enemy we're going to take out. We are going to immediately pop our Retribution of the Medine here, along with, instantly deleted. So that was 8. That was, we can check the damage numbers here because I can just wait. So that was 680 potency. That's a guaranteed critical direct hit. Into 1100 potency. Into 1400 potency attack. That enemy was not surviving. I basically dropped a pound of TNT on it and it exploded instantly. That being said, hello, welcome to the first boss. This boss is unknown. I don't know what this boss is because it's unknown. Just like the shark from earlier in Academia Anadir, the first boss here has a time frame in which a second boss will spawn. However, if we kill it before that wave spawns in, the second boss will spawn instantly, and we can start attacking it instead. The good news is, oh, never mind. It does still consider me in combat. I forgot that there's only a small window where you have the ability to get an instant cast. But it instantly casts an ability which gives it a damage buff. But that damage buff does not cause it to get anywhere as close to taking us out here. So hopefully this hammer is going to be enough. Yep, there we go. Up next, for this next section of this dungeon, when I take out this first set of mobs here that drops the barrier to the next set of the next part of the dungeon, we're actually going to run into an unfortunate situation, and that is the literal frame in which that barrier drops. I am instantly aggroed by a set of mobs from the next set of the dungeon. So there is no time at all for me to prepare any motifs that I may use in that section for this next section. Like I would have to do it instantly. But because of that, we end up saving our resources so that we can use it on this part. We're going to aggro each of these, hit them all with a hammer stamp. We're actually going to swift cast one cast here. And now, for this part, these diviners actually have ranged attacks. You'll run into this very occasionally where some of the enemies that you are fighting have ranged attacks. And in those cases, you want to prioritize standing yourself near those enemies just to get the melee enemies to group up near it so that your AoE attacks can deal as much damage as possible. So, there we go. Nicely done. We're going to move into the second boss here. We do have to wait for the boss to spawn before we can target it. So, we are going to hold the tab button. Tab is a button that you can use in this that instantly targets something whenever you press it. Holding the tab button will cause, if nothing is targetable, holding the tab button will cause the first frame that something is targetable for you to target that enemy. And we can use that in conjunction with a Holy and White to get an instant cast, and then use the OGCDs that we plan to do for this first phase. Nicely done. We got the good RNG we wanted here. There's two attacks that the boss can use there. Eye of the Cyclone or 20,000 pound swing. 20,000 pound swing is a point blank AoE that knocks us back, and in that situation, we are trying to cast. And if we get knocked back while we are casting, the cast gets canceled, and it's not fun. Nobody likes that. Please do not knock me back. Eye of the Cyclone, however, is a donut attack that causes there to be a safe spot underneath the boss. And yeah. So here we're actually going to purposely go out of our way to take out these diviners. These diviners are attempting to spawn additional enemies. Previously, we would actually just let them spawn them because it was not worth it to take the time to kill them. However, because of how quickly we can take them out now, it is more than worth it. It is more than worth it. So like previously with Ninja, it would take like 3 or 4 GCDs a piece to do it. So it just made more sense to let them spawn the enemies and then take them out with AoE because you get way more value out of it. But because it takes at most 2 GCDs now, there's more value to be had from not doing that. Sapphire and Pink, I love you too. Thank you for being here. Just want to shout out my girl Saf. Anyway, this is the final boss of Anamnesis Anidir. There is one caveat with this one, and that is we want to be killing this one before a very specific point in the dungeon. So we're on a timer. There is a point at a specific amount of time into the boss fight starting in which the boss will spawn in ads, and we cannot prevent these ads from spawning in. So as a result of that, these ads will give the boss invulnerability, meaning that I have to kill the ads before I can finish off the boss. So while there is no real strategy to it, if your damage numbers are particularly bad, it is possible for you to get that ad phase. So you just sort of have to hope that you don't get really bad RNG. You can lose upwards of 30 seconds if you get really bad of not 30 seconds, but you can lose upwards of like 20 seconds if you get really bad RNG here. With that being said, boss is going to go down before those ads spawn in. We are done with Anamnesis Ander. Next up is going to be the Hero's Gauntlet. This is the third to last dungeon in the run. And there is also an Easter egg that might happen in this dungeon. So if you are aware of Final Fantasy XIV, you might be aware of the name Hildebrand Manderville. There is a Easter egg in this dungeon where you have a small chance of Hildebrand Mandeville spawning in at the later part of this dungeon. So while it's not a guarantee for that to happen, I do always like to have a fun little prediction of will we see the Gentleman of Light to not spoilize exactly what Hildebrand is, but it's a fun little Easter egg. Fun fact about that, the Hildebrand quest line is continuing next week. That's going to be very fun. The Hildebrand quest line is a slapstick, long time running comedy storyline, and it's one of the most universally beloved storylines in the game. So everyone loves it for that. All right. So there's going to be, for this segment, we just have to make sure that we get at least one hit in on all the enemies that spawn here. The reason why we want to do that is these additional NPC allies that we get during this dungeon. If the NPCs hit enemies and you don't hit them, the enemies will start attacking that NPC, and if you're trying to drag them to a location, nice teleport, very good. If you're trying to drag them to a location, if you don't hit them, they're not going to aggro to you, which means they're going to aggro to the allies, and you'll leave them behind, and it's a whole thing that you really want to avoid. So making sure that you get aggro on all the enemies that you can't immediately kill is paramount to making sure you don't lose time in this dungeon. All right, nothing special about this boss in particular, but this dungeon is full of a lot of walls that we have to wait around for NPCs. This is meant to be a relatively story-focused dungeon, but there isn't really anything here I'd say could hard spoil you here with no context, with the exception of some NPCs that you will meet throughout your adventures in Shadowbringers, like this NPC that I'm about to meet here. Feoul, my loveliest of branches, I need you to give me the path forward. I love you. Thank you, Feoul. All right. So Feoul creates a portal for us to move forward. And y'all remember the second dungeon's final boss, our Friend Frog? Well, I've got some good news for you. If you like Friend Frog, he's back.
Yay!
All right. So we don't get to super take advantage of it. However, Friend Frog does give us a very strong benefit here. Friend Frog has the ability to cast that Toad Choir I mentioned previously on these enemies. Previously, when this dungeon was one where survivability was paramount in terms of its importance, this would be a huge boon, because he will polymorph the enemies into toads, preventing them from dealing a high amount of damage to you. Also, this is Tupac Amaro. Say hi to Tupac Amaro. Hi, Tupac Amaro. Bye, Tupac Amaro. I gotta keep going. Love that guy. But we've moved beyond the point in which survivability is an unnecessary thing to think about in Shadowbringers runs, so we don't have to worry about that. But we always say hi to Friend Frog while we are here. All right, next up is a bit of resource gaining here while we prepare for the next boss. Decent teleport timing. All right. So the order of operations for a proper burst phase is going to be making sure you use 5 casts of your paint abilities while you are under the effect of the circle on the ground, Hyperphantasia. That'll give, once you use 5 of those, it'll give you access to the instant cast Rainbow Drip. Once you've used all of your paint abilities, you'll use 3 hits of your Hammer Stamp. And ideally speaking, 2 of your casts in your paint phase are going to be Common and Black, a very powerful ability that I haven't really talked about. Side note, when the animation of Titania here going upwards starts, we start the dash, we get a pretty easy visual cue for a good teleport there. Nicely done. But yeah, the thing about burst phases is, especially when you're under the effect of Starry Muse, you have that 5% damage buff. So making sure that you get the highest damage you possibly can is pretty important to making sure that you are going through your dungeon runs optimally. So here we're going to be joined in by a final set of NPCs. My favorite one of these is Giot. Hello, Giot. I see you back there. You are my favorite Lalafell. Best character from the role quests of Shadowbringers. Don't at me. And coming up after this door is going to be our chance to see the Gentleman of Light. So will we get the spawn? Is the GDQ luck there? Who knows?
I believe.
Unfortunate. So we did not get it. The Gentleman of Light has not blessed us today. Sometime in the future, I'm sure it will be blessed. Yeah, I'm just double checking here. So normally I would keep going because there'd be an additional set of enemies that I could spawn in. However, the final set of enemies here do not actually spawn in until such a time as the first set are done. So we want to make sure that we hit the Paladin here to get him down to, at the very least, 80%. Once we get the Paladin down to 80%, a massive damage reduction will be put on these enemies here, causing them to take severely reduced damage. So in the meantime, we're just going to deal... use attacks, which is going to give us resources, and we're going to take those resources into the final boss where we can hopefully spend them for a lot of good damage. Wait for the thing to fully land before you hit your dash to get what teleport you can. And now we go to the final boss. Alrighty. So the Spectral Berserker here is nothing really to worry about. There is one mechanic that he does, which is a knockback, but we will use an ability called Surecast to mitigate that. Surecast has a main ability where it prevents your cast from being interrupted. It has a secondary ability where it also nullifies all knockback and draw-in effects for the duration. So if the Berserker does cast that knockback, which you will do here, we will just cast Surecast to make sure that we don't get interrupted here. Very good. And that is the only thing that we had to worry about. With that being said, we're just going to... a couple more casts to take out the Berserker. 0.1... Why does this keep happening? Why? Why? What did I do? What did I do to get this RNG? Come on, man.
Come on, game.
Oh, boy. All right. Next up is Matoya's Relict. And the background track for this dungeon is a Banjo-Kazooie song. I'm sorry. Like, Grant Kirkhope could have easily made this track, and I would have believed you. Just listen. Listen to this music and imagine yourself in Mad Monster Mansion. It works. It just works.
I hear it already for sure. Oh, no, there we go. Yeah, that's definitely Grant Kirkhope.
All right. So, for the first part of this dungeon, we pretty much just want to blow all of our damage right out of the gate here. And this is because we don't have to worry super hard about making sure our cooldowns are going to be aligned where we need to. Or, like, we're making sure that our motifs are ready and our cooldowns aligned where we need to. Because every time in this first section, in fact, pretty much through every section, when you take out the wave of mobs, you have to wait for the frog companions that you have, more friend frogs, to give you the path forward to the next part of the dungeon. Hello, Sonny of Ziggy. The Sonny of Ziggy is the Sonny of Ziggy Stardust. Sorry. The Sonny of Ziggy is the Sonny of a previous boss known as Ziggy. As an attack that Ziggy had was called Stardust. So Ziggy's attack Stardust. You can see the reference there if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Very happy that that reference is in the game, which leads us into a funny talking point that I was supposed to mention earlier, which is just a funny little thing about Final Fantasy XIV in general. So the previous lead translator for this game was a man known as Michael Christopher Koji Fox, and Koji Fox is pretty, like, he's infamous and famous in the community because the original, the English translation of Final Fantasy XIV has a significant number of pop culture references. We're talking all the way from old movies like Star Wars and Spaceballs to games like Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. The references are everywhere. And when this game first relaunched in its 2.0 version of A Realm Reborn, a very common nickname for the game was Final Reference 14, a meme reborn, because the references are everywhere. They're actually just everywhere in this game. From the names of like overworld encounters called fates to the names of quests. Like there's an entire society quest group called the Omicron that is just references to the different Hitchhiker to the Guides to the Galaxy books. Like each of the names of the quests are Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy references, and I love that. Yeah, and that is also a good thing to note in the chat. He was at one point introduced in a Final Fantasy XIV fan fest as Koji Fox was introduced as the Undying Meme Lord, and. Well, at first I was just like, Koji Fox, another reference, really? At this point, it's just like, the legacy is endearing enough that even though he's no longer the lead translator of Final Fantasy XIV, he's still the translator supervisor, and the person who took over as the lead translator has continued the legacy of references and memes in the entire game. So it's now just an endearing part of Final Fantasy XIV. All right, so these sections here, you can get teleports. The downside to it is the dash distance that Smudge has puts you right at the end of those falling platforms that you land on. So what ends up normally happening because of that is you will just lose all your momentum right at the end of the dash and fall straight down where you would normally keep your forward momentum when you hop off a... higher ground to a lower ground situation. So you do lose a little bit of time there using each smudge, but the bonus you get from the smudge is just worth using it. All right. Second boss has significantly lower health than other bosses in this dungeon because it has a relatively long extended ad phase where it goes invulnerable and you have to take out... you have to jump up on a cloud and then take out some ads to cause the boss to spawn back in again, be able to damage it. Because of that, the boss's health is much lower, and we can take it out very easily. This section, the final section of the dungeon before the final boss, is going to be the best one for showing off teleports in their entirety, because, holy moly, this section is riddled with teleports opportunities, which you will see in a moment. As we take out these guys here, hopefully they both die from that. One extra GCD is not going to hurt me. Hitting the right button will hurt me, though. Hitting arrow and green combo. All right, but either way, we're going to wait here, look for a visual cue on the ground. Nicely done. Get a pretty decent, more than halfway teleport there. It's absolutely possible to time those teleports so you get, like, the entire distance. But these, the frogs will cause the lava path in front of us to separate 3 times over the course of the dungeon. Gonna wait for them to come together before I use this last one. Oh, that guy started casting. That is unfortunate. Got to spend a few extra GCDs here that I wouldn't want to. Unfortunate, but we'll keep going. Oh yeah, we get to do this teleport opportunity with the lava 3 times in this dungeon. There we go. That's a good teleport. All right. So before we do the final teleport here, I think we'll have... No, we might not have enough time for it. Either way, we're going to type /return in the chat, and then we're going to prep that. Nice, really good teleport there. So we wait for this frog to get to the top of the hill, and then we're going to activate the all-class ability Return, which when you use Return in a dungeon, it warps you to the start of the dungeon. Now we have to make sure that the frog starts a casting animation before we use Return. And this gets us back to the start of the dungeon about 5 seconds or so quicker than if we use the normal portal. And it's pretty much the only time we get to make use of Return in dungeon speedruns anymore. There were There was one case prior in A Realm Reborn where we used to for speed, but we don't do that anymore. But if we don't, if we return too soon and the frog does not start the casting animation, we have to run back through that entire section. So it's very important that we don't do that. Also, holy moly, the RNG in this particular boss fight was very good for my damage. Killing it before the knockback is ridiculously good damage. All right. With that being said, we are now going into the final dungeon of the run. So the timing will end when the screen fades to black from the final boss of this dungeon being done. With that being said, this is Paglathan. And if you enjoyed the big pulls at the very start of Mount Gulg earlier in the run, you will love these ones because these pulls are huge. So ideally, we want to take out all of the tempered imperials here. Nicely done. We'll have enough time to recast here. We're going to take out this debris. Swift cast another hammer stamp. We can take out the debris to keep moving forward, and now we can keep using our movement abilities and our other stuff to keep going forward because we want to get over to the final part of this dungeon. So there are two enemies that have ranged attacks in this part. They are both tempered imperials. We want to try and take out the tempered imperials so that the rest of the enemies will remain grouped together as much as possible. And now, begin the damage dealing. Also, this is like the only time where you're in any sort of actual threat of dying, and the enemies die quick enough that you very quickly lose that threat instantly. So I need an audio cue here for a teleport. Nope, too early. That's unfortunate. That's okay. So going into the first boss here, nothing special about this guy either. Just a matter of taking him out as usual. I guess the only thing you do want to do is make sure that you're not purposely getting hit by anything you can avoid because, well, I said this is the only dungeon where you really are at any sort of threat of dying. As long as you do the mechanics correctly, you'll be good on that front. So, you know, just take that lighting and redirect it onto the pole, then don't stand at any of the big blue AoEs. AoEs stand for Area of Effect, for the record, if you're unaware of what that stands for. And now we just spend a few more attacks. There we go. And now I get to make the joke that I get to make every single time at the start of the run.
What took you so long?
I don't know. It's only been like, what, an hour, 19 minutes? Hasn't been that long, Estinian. Come on, man. This would have been like record pace a month ago. Come on, man. Don't worry about it. All right. So for this section, we do want to make sure that all the enemies are aggroed, but we want to hold them together best we can. And next up, we actually get the most helpful NPC in terms of helping us go fast in this dungeon. And that is going to be the dragon, Tiamat. Tiamat will do 2 attacks during this next segment that deal massive amount of enemy damage to the enemies. And the first set is very convenient because it allows us to save a good amount of resources. So we're going to attack both of these enemies here. Once we get them below 75%, we know for a fact that they are going to die from the attack that Tiamat will do, which is very nice because then we can save any and all the resources we want for these Tello dragons instead. And there would be, if it took long enough, a second attack that Tiamat would do that would delete these 2 Tello dragons from about 30% HP or so. Now, it's more like 50. But thankfully, because we were able to save resources on the first set, we can easily knock them out for the second set. Pictomancer is currently the only job used for this category because of how absurdly broken its burst damage potential is, while also having some pretty decent mobility to go along with it. So yeah, that answered that question. So this boss is an ad boss in the sense that the only thing you kill here is a bunch of additional enemies, which is what ads stand for. But you also get access to this magic core that you do want to use your higher burst damage abilities on to get it down to 50% for the first phase and then kill it for the second phase. But the general gist is you're going to want to be doing your best to maximize your AoE on these enemies. Now, I'm not going to name names, Fluffy, but you do have to still pay attention during this phase of the fight because you can do some very silly thing where you can... some missiles will spawn on the edge of the arena at a certain point, here we are. And if you take long enough, these missiles can get to the center of the arena, and as you're walking to stand here to get knocked up instantly to where you need to go to attack the boss, you can run into 6 missiles in a row and die, and lose a record pace run to that. And again, not naming any names, Fluffy, but some people will do that on occasion.
Some people, you say.
Yeah, some people. Don't know who those people would be, because there's no way I'm naming names.
Not at all.
Aggressive smiling. Alright, so we are coming up on the final boss of the dungeon. There's one last leg of ads before we get there. Sword on, keen on. Tiamat, as well as the rest of the dragons in Final Fantasy XIV, actually speak a unique language that was created for this game. As far as I'm aware, from what Koji Fox said, it is a fully developed language of words that have meanings that can translate to English and Japanese, which helps because I believe the dragons only use one voice actor because of that. So that definitely helps them for budget-wise of not having to hire new voice actor for every language. But I just also think it is a fun little fact to say, because I like, just like with Klingon in Star Trek, I like when writers go above and beyond to create an entire new language for a video game, even if it's only really going to be used for that game or that series in question.
I love that so much. I think it was done in Caribbean Forgotten Land as well, too.
Oh yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, there's like an alphabet that translates directly to English. It's pretty cool.
All right, here we go. This is the final boss of this run. Time will end when the screen fades to black upon killing it. This is Lunar Bahamut. This, again, is one of the only 2 things that really give you any sort of real damage threat here. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding any and all the AoEs that do pop up, lest you get, like, 8 bone stacks and die completely unnecessarily. Don't want that to happen. All right. Pretty decent burst damage here. Do I want to take... yeah, I mean, it's going to be worth it. It's 1100 potency. All right, so this is the main attack that gives you fear of dying. This is Akmorn. This is a multi-hit attack that's meant to be taken with a group, but we're solo, so it can deal a lot of damage. But looks like we're not going to have to worry about that. Time is coming up here in the last hit. Should be one or either this one or the next one. The next one. And time. All right.
GG.
That is Final Fantasy XIV. All Dungeon Shadowbringers completed in, I think on my splits, I have 124.23 or so. It seems to be pretty good on that front. But yeah. So, as I said, the Final Fantasy XIV All Dungeons categories, along with a lot of others, are segregated by expansion. You have All Dungeons of Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker. Those are not the only ways to speedrun Final Fantasy XIV, however. You do also have the All Trials categories. You do have the ability to do All Dungeons co-op instead of solo, like I'm doing here. Every single instance in the game, so every single instance that's in like all of these tabs, each have their own speedrun leaderboard that you can have for the most part, with some exceptions. So let's just say you thought, oh, I really thought the twinning was a cool dungeon. I want to run that one. You can just speedrun just the twinning all on its own. You can do that. Each of the deep dungeons, which are these procedurally generated, sort of, not really roguelike, but procedurally generated dungeons, each have their own speedrun categories as well. The deep dungeons are, you might remember, as Angelus Demonis ran a Palace of the Dead deep dungeon run at a GDQ during the pandemic era, which, if you've seen that, that's basically what they are, and it's very cool. There's a lot of different ways to speedrun. You can also speedrun the main story. Like, if you want to do like the main story speedruns, there's categories for each leaderboard. We allow multi-segments, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. So if you're like me and you like to do things all in one sitting, and then you just can't finish a 13-hour run, you can just take a break and make it a multi-segment run. There's no issue with that whatsoever. So yeah, there is nothing stopping you if you enjoy Final Fantasy XIV, but maybe you're like me and need some other way to keep enjoying it, to doing some speedruns. Yeah. So world record for this category is a 1:21:40 by me. Definitely that is improvable, but very happy to be less than 3 minutes off of off of record for what is a heavily commentated solo run. And yeah, that'll about do it for me on all dungeons. So coming up next is going to be a Titanfall 2 any percent NCS run by Rippy, and I just want to give a shout out to the Titanfall 2 community for that. Titanfall 2 is a speed game that I love that community. I'm a mod for that community. I love that game with all my heart, and please stick around for watching that because Rippy's a fantastic runner, going to be showing off NCS, a nice little alternative way to speedrun the category, and it's also being commentated by Sapphire and Pink, and Sapphire and Pink is a great friend of mine. Thank you for having me, Shasta. I am very happy to have been able to show this off. If you want to join the Discord for, there's a link on the SRC page, the speedrun.com page. If you want to get into Final Fantasy XIV speedrunning in any way, you can join the Discord. I'm great speaking. Good job, Fluff. You can join the Discord.
You did well, it's fine.
Join the community that way. But that being said, I've taken enough time with my shout outs because I had a bit more time with my estimate and I took advantage of that. But I will let you take it away, Shasta. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for doing the run. That was a lot. And before you head off to Parallel Universe after this, with Titanfall 2 and a few other games tonight, I have a few more announcements I gotta read real quickly before I head off myself. So, yeah, if y'all been enjoying Hotfix in general, consider subscribing to the channel. It'd be kind of cool if you want to. Any primers? Prime Gaming, hello. But yeah, you can maybe do that. All the revenue from like subs, Prime Gaming subs, like gift subs, bits cheered, all go to GDQ and help support Hotfix overall. So yeah, consider doing that if you want to. You also chat during our replays after the fact too. That's also pretty cool. Yeah, also. Go gamesmarket.com/hotfix to check out our season 4 schedule as well, and check out the schedule for an in-depth look at this week's runs too. You can see all there's like 4 runs after this. You can see all of them right there. There's a whole schedule. It's great. But yeah. Also, if you really like Hotfix a lot, you can also check out our 2024 season 4 shirts at theyeti.com/agdq. I need to get that shirt still. Actually, it looks really good. But yeah. And also, I got one more event to tell you all about too before I go. That's GQ's all women and femme spearing event, Frost Fatales 2025. Be live from March 9th through the 16th, benefiting the National Women's Law Center. Oh my words, I can't speak either. Visit gamesdon'tquit.com/frame fatales for more information on the events. Ba-bam. All right. That being said, we have Parallel Universe after this with Limey. So stick around.